Hey there, listeners, and welcome to Women Talk Construction. Today's episode. I'm Angela Gardner here with my fabulous co host, Christy Powell. And
Hello.
we're, hey, Christy. And we're beyond excited to bring you this conversation with Giovanna Carchidi. Carchidi. Okay,
There you
I'll let
Yay!
go.
her say it again.
Yes, yes, you did it. You did it.
Yeah,
It's a challenging name. Definitely one that is not easy to forget. I can tell you that.
no, it
Yes.
isn't. But I'll let her say it from now on, from here out. And she is with Kohler, which we are so excited to bring her conversation to y'all. She is not just a powerhouse in her role as national sales manager in a multifamily sector, she is a living example of how passion and purpose can shape a career in construction. Today, we are unpacking 5 topics that dive into her journey and spotlight why the construction industry is calling her fresh faces like yours. Whether you're dreaming of hands-on gig or a strategic role like Giovanna's, this episode has got something to spark your curiosity. So let's get rolling. But before we do, let's mention, Christy, what we're wearing today. It is the Iowa School of Construction from Perla DeLuca, which we got from her this past Monday from being at having her as our keynote, one of the keynotes speakers or interviewees at the Women Construction Owners and Executives Conference, right?
Yes, it was so good.
It was so much fun.
It was so good.
Yeah,
I'm so sad that I missed it.
it was a
You can
blast.
come next time.
Oh, I
Oh,
will.
yeah. So let's get rolling. So, Giovanni, you want to introduce yourself to the audience and then we'll start with the questions.
Sure. So, Giovanna Carchidi, I am the national sales manager for our projects business for Kohler Company. From a project perspective, that encompasses multifamily and hospitality. So I manage our business nationally with a team of business development managers that work across the United States with the top 100 largest national and multifamily developers, contractors, owners, and property management firms. So just a small little role at a tiny little company.
Yeah, Tanya, yeah.
No. But I actually love it. And it is, I found my passion. I found my home. And so, when you find what you love, it's not really work, right?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, it is work. Let's be honest.
It is.
It is work.
But it keeps you getting up in the morning, right?
I'm motivated every day to go out and do it all over again. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So not everybody gets to sit down with some of the people that I get to sit down with and shoot the breeze for hours. And I have been fortunate enough to be able to do that with Giovanna. And it turned into a really quick friendship. And now we text and call a lot. And one of the things that I love about you and your story is it's so inspiring. And being in the sales world, hits close to home for me. So we're just going to touch the tip of the iceberg today. But for one of the questions I want to ask is what first drew you to the construction industry? And I know the answer to this, but I think it's important for our audience to know, what drew you to want to be in sales in a very male populated industry. And now you're a leader. What drew you there, and how did that curiosity turn into the amazing career that you've made for yourself today?
Well, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to tell my story, because a lot of what has made me successful today in my role is my upbringing, right? So
Right.
the core of who I am is all about how I was raised. And so I am a first generation American. My family immigrated to the United States in the early 70s from Southern Italy. They had a very, very humble upbringing, right? And they made all the sacrifices in the world to come and, work hard and live that American dream. And they came to the United States, and they struggled for everything and built a really strong foundation for myself and my two sisters and my brother. And coming from an immigrant family, my father was in construction. He is like a wizard mason, right? He was the
Yay.
jack of all trades, but he was a true artisan in the masonry aspect of it. So I grew up with blueprints on my dining room table, right?
Mhm.
And every night after dinner, my dad was looking at blueprints and bringing out his calculator and doing his math and calculating how many cinder blocks, how many bricks, how many yards of concrete, right? And doing his estimates. While my mother was, raising a family of four and doing all the other stuff, right? And also helping support his business. So as an immigrant, especially, with two sisters, right? The emphasis had always been in our household to focus on education and independence, right? Because they
Mhm.
made all those sacrifices to come to the United States so that they and their children could live better lives, right? And get the opportunity to live a better life. And so it was always about education. I grew up on job sites. There were backhoes in my backyard. I used to love when it snowed because,
I love it.
most people, their dads would go out in the morning and get their shovel and, shovel the pathway or the sidewalk. My dad would get his backhoe. He would put us in the back and then he would go down the street, grab all the snow, put it in our yard, and we would have like our own little ski slope, right?
Oh,
So
that's cool.
it was amazing,
Nice.
right? It was incredible. My mom hated it because nobody had snow for months and we still had snow mountains in our backyard because we had the entire town's snow in our yard, right? But even though I grew up on job sites, I never saw women there. So I never thought that that was a space that I could play in, right? My father had a very successful business as a contractor. And if anyone was going to take it over, it was going to be my brother, who had zero interest in manual labor or running the business, right? And was like, no, I'm good with
Yeah,
that,
I'm
right?
out.
So I focused on getting education, and I knew that I wanted to be like Angela Bauer from Who's the Boss, right?
Mm.
Like,
Hmm.
I wanted to be the boss. I wanted to be a successful businesswoman, right? I just never knew that I could do that in construction. So I went to college. I focused on a degree in business, more specifically with a marketing concentration, because I always had a little creativeness in me, right? I could always put a spin on something. And after I graduated from college, the goal was to be an attorney like my father or like my older sister, because my father and my mother thought that we should all be attorneys. I'm not sure if it's because we were constantly challenging things or if we were
Ah,
constantly fighting, right? And
yeah.
and never letting our point die, right? But at the time when I graduated from college with a business degree, my older sister was in her first year of law school. And it did not look like a very attractive endeavor, right? It was a lot of books, a lot of reading. And I was like, I think I'm going to go out into the world, spread my wings for a year, figure out what's out there, and go from there. Then, if law school's in my path, I'll go that route. And my dad really, really wanted me to be a lawyer, so I decided to naturally go into technology sales. And I found right, natural progression. Um,
Yeah.
and so I found myself being wildly successful, knowing nothing about technology, because it didn't matter what widget I was peddling. I needed to
Mm.
be able to solve a problem with a widget. So I needed to be able to ask my customers the right questions. So
Right.
if they did have a problem that I had a widget for, I found the sweet spot. So I was wildly successful in that realm and parlayed that into a sales and marketing role for the largest technology service providers in the world, right?
Nice.
And what I found was, again, from the marketing side, I was managing national marketing campaigns for companies like Microsoft, right? And everybody was trying to solve business problems. And I found out really early in through that endeavor that if you ask the right questions every business is kind of struggling with the same challenges, right?
Yeah.
And what
Mhm.
what Microsoft was trying to solve, Oracle was trying to solve, and SAP was trying to solve, and all these major players that I was managing marketing campaigns for were all looking for that information of what those key problems were, so that they could design and develop solutions to those problems. So again, how did I get there and how was I successful? Just asking the right questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that there was integrity to my data, right?
Yeah.
And then leveraging that over and over and over again.
And
So
within that, you built great relationships.
Yep.
of course, right? Because I'm creating those intimate relationships with my customer base because I truly did care about what their problems were,
Mm-hmm.
so that I could genuinely, authentically try to solve them with a solution that was right for them to make them successful, right? So
Yeah.
I was a partner in that relationship, right? And they felt that, and that is authentically who I am just in life, right? Um, so that came across. And because I am who I am, and I never find the straightest path to what fuels my fire, I then parlayed my sales and marketing background from a technology perspective into a role at Kohler as a sales executive for the Philadelphia market, managing our projects business, so commercial, hospitality, and multifamily. And that came out of actual life circumstances. I was 38 years old. I was a recent widow, which is not typical,
Mm.
right? So, just like
Mm-hmm.
many other women across the entire country and world, I was pretty much middle aged, and life threw me lemons, and I like lemonade. So I had to
Mm.
figure out, how was I going to get myself out of debt? How was I going to live an authentic life that made me happy? How was I going to be financially and fiscally responsible? Because I was not prepared for all the things that come with being a widow at that young age, right? So I figured, if life's going to send me a reset button, then I'm really resetting. And at 38 years old, I took a deep dive. I had been fortunate in my life, being a child of, an immigrant family. Half of my family is still in Italy. So I traveled extensively as a young child across Europe, and I got a taste for art and architecture, and it's what I loved, right? And I was always fascinated by how things were built. And I was always fascinated, well, how does my dad take that blueprint and make that look the way it does? And it stays up, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I said, if I'm going to start over, I'm going to start over and allow myself the opportunity to fail. Because what do I have to lose at this point?
You
And
don't.
Yep.
so this role at Kohler came up, and I sold myself and my skill set, and they saw something in me, and they took a risk on someone to be in this role that required a high level of skill set, a construction background, and general industry understanding, to go build sky rises or high rises in the city of Philadelphia. That was
Yeah.
not me, but I did. And here
Yeah.
And
I
then
am 8.5
You
years
can
later.
do whatever you want to
yeah,
do, right?
and then you landed at Kohler.
Mhm.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? Let's pull back the curtain for a second. And what's a typical day like for you at Kohler? What parts of
Oh,
managing the multifamily accounts that make you think, wow, I love this job?
so every day is different, which is one of the things that I love, right?
Mhm.
I mean, in the role that I'm in, managing the gigantic business segment that I'm responsible for managing, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility because I'm responsible for high volume sales dollars, right? But I'm also responsible for being the finger on the pulse of the market and the industry, and being the expert of, how what's happening, and how do we better plan for it.
Yeah.
So um, what I love about my job is that I have the ability to be a voice in the room that helps my company create new products, that helps my company be more strategic, that helps my company be more profitable. I get to lead a team. And so I get to influence and inspire. And I also get to travel all over the country And when I land in cities, I get to see those gigantic buildings that lived on my computer screen
Yes.
in real life. And I played a role in that, a very small
Yes.
role, right? But I played a role in that. So I get to change city skylines all across America, right? I
Yes.
get to leave my little spin, my little touch, my crazy question, my bold idea all over the United States.
So
That's super cool.
it is so cool. And I love your passion.
Yes.
Sadly, I want to get through all these questions, so we're gonna
Okay.
pick it up a little faster. So we're gonna kind of do a challenge round, right? Like I ask a question, you answer.
Okay.
So Kohler is known for pushing boundaries. So that's why you get to make those great big buildings, and you get to have your products, and you get to have that diagram on your screen. They've pushed those boundaries in design and function. How do you see your work shaping the future of construction and maybe even inspiring someone to join the industry?
Yeah.
So I will try to keep this short, but
Hey, we could talk
working,
forever, right?
I
Yeah.
know, and we typically do. Um, so um, our company has been around for 152 years, and they are the leaders in this space for a reason, because they appreciate bold, creative, wild ideas, right? And we have the manufacturing capabilities to be able to bring those crazy things to life. So I get to work with my new product development team and run crazy ideas by them, right? And a lot of that is centered around like wellness, sustainability,
Mhm.
technology, water conservation. Like, how do we do it better? How do we get it? How do we make it more efficient? How do we make it more sustainable? How do we make it look cool, right?
Yeah,
And so I think that technology plays a really big role in some of
absolutely.
that. And I lean into that within my organization. I'm heavily engaged with a lot of the different technology platforms. I'm on a lot of steering committees. I come up with crazy ideas about how can we use AI, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
those are conversations that typically someone in my role wouldn't be involved in, but I raise my hands and I bring the bold ideas forward, and
yeah.
they're received, and some of them are executed. So that's pretty crazy and fun.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think that you're always going to be on the leading edge if you're thinking about the future.
Yeah. And I think that's what that's one of those things that I think that has contributed to my success in the various roles, like being able to be forward thinking enough to see what's
Mhm.
happening in the world around me so that I can help solve problems before they become problems, so that we have a game
Exactly.
plan to just roll with it because we've already thought about it, right? We're already prepared
Exactly.
for what's next.
Yeah. Yeah. You see the problem before it even comes.
Yes. I mean, I solve about 50 problems in my own household before I have my second cup of coffee in the morning, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly. I
but
think
that's
that's what
not
we do, right?
right.
Yeah.
That's not unique to me. I think that that is what makes women such a natural fit for the construction industry, is because
Absolutely.
generally speaking, we're connectors, we're problem
Mhm.
solvers, we're really efficient because we don't have a lot of time, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we have to figure a
We
lot.
gotta do
We're
this in 3 minutes. Do you
correct,
understand? There are 7 things
correct.
we have to get done in 3 minutes.
And that's what I hope that, young female listeners understand, right? There are
You
so
bring a
many,
lot to the table.
and there's so many different aspects that they can contribute their skill sets to, from a myriad of different functions that support the
Mhm.
construction industry. I think of it
Mhm.
just from like a manufacturing lens, right? Like
Yeah.
I work for a building materials manufacturer. We have over 40,000 people that are supporting just one category of building materials that we bring to the construction industry.
Yeah.
There's 49 other categories, right? So
Yes.
just from the building materials perspective, there's a
Yeah.
limitless amount of opportunity.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, your role working, with you work with so many people there. You work with
Mhm.
clients, teams, and all the builders. So, how does collaborating fuel success in construction, and why is it a great field for folks who love to connect? Why is construction a great way to go?
Well, if you think about it, right? Like think about just building a shed, right? Or building a house, right? how many different people, how many different tradespeople, building material salespeople, architects, designers, engineers, like, people at the permit office, how many people go into making one house come out of the ground, right?
Yeah.
It all requires collaboration, connectivity, teamwork. Otherwise, it doesn't happen, right? So
Yep.
when I think about like the construction industry as a whole, like we all build things. We all contribute to building something. And in order to do that, you need to be inquisitive, and you need to be present, and you need to be connected, and you need to collaborate together, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the
Mhm.
roofer needs to know when he needs to be roofing, right? And the framers
Absolutely.
need to tell him,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody needs to work together. It is literally like we always use these sports analogies, like think about building a house, right? All of the coordination, collaborations, like it is the biggest, best team when it all comes together, right? With
Absolutely. Yep.
and
We're
also
better together.
we are
Yep.
better together, and we've created a home where a family is going to live and grow and love, and like memories will be made there. Like we leave an impression, right? And we build communities, and we need a strong community to build strong communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in our industry, we tend to, for some reason, we work in silos. And
Mhm.
that's probably one of our drawbacks in the industry altogether. Commercial, real estate, you name it, right? Residential doesn't really matter. I feel like we tend to stay in silos, and because that's what we've always done. And so
Yeah.
we seem to be like struggling trying to get into the out of the silo mode and more into the collaboration mode. Thank you for that. So, Giovanna, you're a trailblazer for women in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I found you on LinkedIn, by the way. And, when I saw what you were involved in and I, started watching some of your posts, I thought, oh my goodness, this woman, I need to be her friend. So I love what you're doing. What is one piece of advice that you'd give to someone, especially a woman, thinking about jumping into construction? So that that ideal that we have as women that don't understand or have not been around construction, or these students who haven't even been approached with it's an option. What's your advice to get them thinking about joining us? Because we want more, right?
We need
We know
more.
it's gonna make better work environments. It's gonna make better, diverse decisions.
Teams. Better
We're
teams.
gonna make more money, and to top it all off, we need 1,000,000 more people in the construction
Yes.
industry by
Yes.
2026. So, not only do we need women, we need people, like,
Yes.
really, really, really badly. So give us some advice that everybody's gonna love.
So my first piece of advice would be to reach out to someone that's on social media, like in the construction industry, and just ask some questions, right? And find out what could life look like? What does that career look like? Is it hard? Is it challenging? What are those challenging? Is there an avenue for success there? If I had done that in the early 2000s, God knows what my career would have looked like, right? I did it.
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
did it mid stage. Like I was a middle-aged woman, and I was doing it. And here I am 8.5 years later, starting from nothing and no experience, no understanding. And
Mhm.
I'm leading a national business segment for one of the largest, manufacturing companies in the world, right?
Yes.
So I would say lean in and be inquisitive, right? And
Mhm. Ask questions.
ask questions. And from the other side of that is, the message to the other women in the construction industry, right? Like whether you're involved
Yes.
in the technology aspect of it or the building material sales of it, one of the things that I struggled with was finding those advocates, finding the Christy and Angela's 8.5 years ago, right?
Woo! Yes,
And and
absolutely.
and we have a responsibility to each other to advocate and
Yes.
Yeah.
support and connect and continue elevating platforms like this one where we have a voice that can amplify and
Mhm.
can be widely distributed to the younger
Yes.
fresher minds, and we are successful. We are leading the industry. We
Yeah.
are the boss.
Yeah.
I became Angela Bauer,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. You
It-
are what you see,
Yeah.
right?
we
You
are
can
what we
believe it,
see.
you can see it, you can do it, right?
Yes.
And we
So
appreciate, I was going to say, we appreciate your leadership,
Mm-hmm.
um, and what you're doing and how important it is. But I want to tell you, audience, and Giovanna and Angela and I have talked about this a lot, and I don't think we've said it on a podcast often enough, but it changes your entire world when you have a group of women
Yes.
who are your cheerleaders. It
yes.
changes your world. You wake up the next morning after you found that for the first time and you think, oh my gosh, my world just got a little better.
Yep.
And then the next thing you know, it's a lot better. And then the next thing you know, you're empowered. And the next thing you know, you have confidence. And the next thing you know,
Mm-hmm.
you've got this team of women around you that literally you may not even work together. You may not even be in the same realm of work, but you're calling them and saying, hey, I struggled with this today. And then they're, oh man, that happened to me like 2 years ago. Let me tell you how I navigated that. And it just literally makes your life easier. And it makes everything worthwhile.
Yeah.
It
I
really
mean,
does.
and a lot of time, like people ask me sometimes, like, what do you do? And I say, I'm just a positive disruptor,
You're
right?
not just anything.
Yeah. No.
I
One of
mean,
our friends taught us
Yes,
that.
that's right.
that is
Yes,
true. That
yes,
is
we are
true.
not just anything. Yeah.
No, but I seek out, and it's become one of my goals to normalize women in
Mm-hmm.
construction. So
Yeah.
I, in with intention and dedication,
Mm-hmm.
reach out to grow my own network of women
Yeah.
in construction through platforms like this one, and the friendships, like
Yes.
the
Mm-hmm.
sisterhood that I found
Mm-hmm.
here. And I bring that to my organization and to the different networking events that I'm involved in, that are full of different industry involved parties, right? Architects,
Mm-hmm.
designers, engineers, general contractors, developers, whatever
Yeah.
it is. Like, we all need to do that.
Yeah.
We
And
need
I
more of
and
that.
I and I have to make a point here. I think it's important for our audience to hear this. Our customers care about this
Mm-hmm.
a
They
lot.
absolutely
They're
do.
like, you are doing that. We want to do business with you. We're not going someplace else. Like our customers are telling us that all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
know Giovanna and I have talked about it. Angela and I have talked about it. All of our companies and our customers are telling us this matters. And, you've stepped it up to the next level. And I think it's important for people to know that, right?
Yeah.
Even
And
in this new environment where we don't talk about the words, right? It doesn't matter. The way we treat people and how we do good things for the community, no matter what the gender, what the race,
yep.
it matters to our customers. I
Yes.
just had to throw that in there. Sorry.
No, and it's so completely true. And it's funny, a lot of times, sometimes my fiance listens to me on the days that I'm not traveling and I'm working from home, and I'm, having virtual calls with, the largest developers in the country, right? Like
Yes.
ones
Oh
that
yeah.
everybody
Yes.
knows, right?
Yeah.
And we'll meet each other by the coffee machine, like in between meetings, right? And he'll sometimes say to me, he's like, I truly don't know what you do for a living, right?
Yes. Well,
He
it's
hears
because you
my
do so many
conversations,
things.
right? And he hears my conversations, right? Because I talk pretty loud. And he's like, I heard who you were on the phone with. He's like, you weren't selling toilets, right? But the conversations that we were having were all relative to this, because it
Hmm.
matters to them. It is something that they are passionate about. And
Right.
so they want to do business with people and organizations that also highlight and elevate and focus on the
Yes.
same things that matter.
Yes.
Companies are
You're in
essentially,
alignment.
Mm-hmm.
they're a community of people, right? And
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
people, we want to do the right things. We want to work with people who want to do the right things and do the same
Yes.
things and believe the same things and act the same way and behave the same way. So when you find those like-minded people, you just lean in and everything becomes like,
Better.
everything becomes better. So that whole stronger together, it sounds cliche, but it actually really is true.
It is true. Yeah, we're gonna keep saying it whether it's cliche or not, right?
Yeah.
So, we have to wrap it up,
Yeah.
sadly.
Okay.
Sadly. Today, we have to wrap it up. But I hope you're as fired up as we are today. I hope,
Oh,
audience, that
pitter
you're as
patter.
fired up listening to Giovanna, listen to Angela and I. Just be empowered. And I have to say this, Gina Schaefer is one that did a keynote speaking event, on just, we are not just. And I can't tell you how much that affected me, right? How often do we do that? I'm just this, or I'm just that, or I'm just going to do this, or I'm just going to do that. No, everything we do matters. It's not a just. And nobody else says that. It just seems to
No.
be among the female workers, right? So anyway, just wanted to shout out to Gina Schaefer. Her keynote really changed my life. Giovanna, thank you for being with
No.
us today.
Thank
Your
you.
commitment and your story proves that construction isn't just about hammers and nails, which we know
Nope.
it isn't. It's
Yeah.
about creativity, connectivity, and making a mark, whether you're eyeing roles like Giovanna's, or you just want to explore the booming industry. Take this as your sign to dive in, all of you that are listening.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. And before we get off here, we're going to have Giovanna tell everybody how to get a hold of her. And we will catch you next time with more stories to fuel your construction dreams.
So I encourage anyone and everyone that's listening to reach out to me on LinkedIn and connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's find time to maybe set up a virtual call. Or I travel a lot, so tell me where you are and maybe we can actually schedule some in-person time to grab a cup of coffee. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty sure that these wonderful ladies have all of that information readily available for all of you. But I'm looking forward to connecting and building that stronger network and advocating
Yes.
for all the other female women in construction out there. So
Thank you again, Giovanna.
thank you.